episode in this series. I've been really enjoying chatting through all the pieces that help you unlock website success. I am here today with Minal, and she is going to talk to us all about her specialty, which is email marketing. And that's just such a key piece in building relationships and driving traffic to your website. So when you people, and so it's kind of circular, right? Like you get people on your website, you're hoping to drive them to your email list so you can build that relationship further. And then you want to drive them back to your website to take next steps with you, right? So we're going to be talking all about that. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, you're welcome. I'm very excited. So I don't often get asked to be a guest on podcasts. So I'm really,
which is wild because you host a load of people.
I know. So I'm really happy to do this, and it's a really nice way to round off the week. So thank you for asking me. But so my business is called Marketing by Minal, and I started it in 2016. And my sort of big goal is really just to make marketing simple for solo business owners, the people that have to run the business, do the marketing, do the account, do all of that stuff, just to really make it simple and help them understand how to do it in their way, in the time that they've got and with the money that they have. And like you said, I specialize in email marketing. So before I started Marketing by Minal, I worked for an email marketing company for 4 years. So it really I resisted the urge in the early days of running my business, but it really kind of seemed a natural fit to hone in on one digital tool that I've worked with for such a long time.
Yeah, totally. And what brought you into business? Like, just summarize, like, how did you get here?
So at said email marketing company, I was made redundant after being there for 4 years. I was the head of marketing for the UK. And it was my second time being made redundant. And that's much less painful than the first time. And it's quite funny because my husband and I were buying this house that we're in now. And things weren't going great with that. And a week after we got our mortgage offer extended, I was made redundant. So there was a lot of panicking on my part. My husband was quite calm about it. And he said, I think you should start your own business, because I never see you happier than when you're talking to a small business owner and helping them understand how they could do their marketing. So I think you should do that. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a go. So I started the business and moved house at the same time. And it was an interesting first few weeks because my husband had a job where he travelled. So we moved into this house on a Sunday, and on Monday he said, right, bye, I'll see you. I'm going off to Germany for 3 days. So I was unpacking, painting, setting up websites, setting up social media. So it was quite a whirlwind few months. But things settled, and then I started getting into what I really wanted to do, which was help small businesses. So I was lucky enough to work in a company that targeted small businesses. So I already knew the small business landscape in the UK and the organisations that I could turn to for help, but also to say to them, well, how can I help you? How can I give you content? Can I speak for you? What can I do? So it was quite a good first year. It was really busy, and it feels like yesterday, but it was nearly 7.5 years ago.
It's wild how time flies when you're running a business, right?
Sure, it really does, especially as well because it's when you love doing what you're doing, and every day is different. All my clients are different, and it just makes me happy when they say to me, oh my God, I didn't realise that was going to work. Oh my God, I never thought of that. Or, wow, I would never have thought of doing it that way. So that's what I'm here for.
I love that. And I think that it's so funny because we come at it from very different angles, but both of us are in this to make small business more simple for people. Because it can be something that if you let it will eat up all your time, all your energy, all your money. Like you can let it become a beast, or you can get a little help. Because I think the other thing is while obviously when you're a small business owner, you're wearing a lot of hats, you can't actually wear them all, or you'll burn out. You will.
So. It's true. So yeah, absolutely. And I think in the beginning, you don't have a lot of money, so you kind of have to do everything. But at the point where you feel like you have got the resources to outsource stuff, you should start thinking about doing that, because it just frees up a lot of time, and you as the business owner, the business leader, need that time really to apply your brain more strategically to like the direction of the business and how
Yeah.
you want it to grow and what you want it to do. And if you know if you're the person who is also doing all the little bits of admin, that's never going to happen. So if your ambition is to grow your business and grow a team and get bigger, you need to learn how to let go of some things, please.
Yeah, I'd say even if you're so two things is that I think are nuanced there is one is when you're first starting up, yes, you are doing everything yourself, but that doesn't mean you're doing everything. There's
No.
things that you're probably setting aside for the future, or there's things that you're not on every single social media channel, you're picking a couple. You might not be doing every marketing thing that you might be later. I didn't have a podcast at the start. I did some blogging, did some networking, and I've
Yeah.
let that grow as I've grown and tried new things as I've gone as well. So that's one thing is like, yes, you're probably not outsourcing yet. And then the other thing is some people never want to grow that massive team, never want to become an agency and whatever.
Maybe.
I have a very small team and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
But most of the business is still just me, but I still can scale
Yes.
by using the right systems, the right tools, the right in my world templates quite often, usually self-created templates, but by not reinventing the wheel all
Yeah.
the time, those kinds of things. So I just want to be really clear because I know a lot of my audience is like me. I don't want you to feel, yeah, I don't want people to feel like those aren't options for them, or that because they've chosen to stay small, that they can't still grow in other ways. Like,
Absolutely. And it was my choice at the outset. People said to me, "You're going to grow an agency," and I thought about all the things that I love doing with marketing, and I thought about all the few jobs that I'd had just before, and the one thing I didn't want to do was manage a team, because it takes you away from doing all the things that you love doing.
yeah.
So right at the outset, I decided it was only going to be me. And there's a great book. It's called, it might be behind me somewhere here. It's called A Company of One.
Mm,
It's a really good book to read, because you can scale. Even if you're one person, you can scale, and you have to have those systems and be brave enough to outsource the things that perhaps you're not good at, you don't like doing. And that frees you up to do the things that you love doing and the reason you started your business.
yeah, totally. And throughout my business, I've outsourced various things. Like I have two virtual assistants that work on a very, very part-time basis, that do different types of things. And then I've also, outsourced bigger projects, coaching, things like that throughout my business as well that have helped me go from strength to strength. They say that a lot of small businesses don't make it past 5 years.
Mhm.
And I'd say 9 times out of 10, probably because they haven't asked for enough help.
Yeah.
And that could be mentors, that could be actual practical outsourcing and all sorts of things.
And also not being afraid to ask for help. Like, I think what I actively did when I started, and I think it's because I went from years of working in businesses where I had teams to bounce ideas off. One of the first things I did was really try to actively build my network.
Mm.
Because all of a sudden overnight, those people that I used to turn around, at my desk, I used to turn around and go, "What do you think of this?" They disappeared. And I needed to find a different way to do that. And, building, I call them business buddies, and a lot of them are, for me, have gone beyond business buddies, and I consider them friends. But, finding those people who perhaps, some of them might be a stage ahead of you, so that you can benefit from their experience and sort of avoid some of those pitfalls that they've been
Yeah.
through. I know a lot of people have given me that help, and that's why I like to help people that are starting out, because it's about really, if you're going to be in that small business world and you want to help small businesses, you're helping the ones that are ahead of you and perhaps helping them grow, but you're helping the ones that are coming behind you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I've done a lot of that same thing. I've built a couple of my own communities. I've taken part of being on committees for like lean in circles in Northern Ireland for entrepreneurs. I've paid for communities to be into, so accelerators and paid coaching programs. So like finding that community is so important. And some of those places, like I still have WhatsApp groups from some paid communities that I paid for ages ago, and I'm not even in anymore. And I still have ones that I've created, like my brunch group that we go to brunch every other month. So it is so important to find that place of like. And I think also in my business, we have a team meeting. I have 2 virtual assistants. Mostly they're like totally autonomous. They go off and do their own thing. They have some tasks assigned to them, and I have tutorials set up, and we barely talk, to be honest. But we do have a chat once a month where my 4 assistants, they're so good to me, but essentially it's me brain dumping at them. Like, it's just like, here's everything going on. Does this make sense? How about we try this? And it is invaluable to get people outside your brain to look at your business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it helps if it's another small business owner, because sometimes I do that brain dumping to my husband, but he doesn't quite get, like, he'll give me advice, but he people who are not in it don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So if you can find those business buddies, it really is invaluable.
I agree. And I think for me, it's so funny because my husband is an entrepreneur. He works part-time. He works part-time and is an entrepreneur part-time. So he kind of has 2 things going. And but he's in like his world of entrepreneurship and his world of employment is so different because he's a software developer. So most of it's SaaS, software as a service. So when he starts thinking of things, it's all these digital products and all these things. And I'm like, whoa, like not my world. Very, very different. All right, but we are here to talk about email marketing. I could talk about the nuances of entrepreneurship forever, and it's all connected, of course. But one of the key things that we're here to talk about is email marketing. So can you kind of just go over like basics of like if somebody hasn't started email marketing yet, what would they do?
Okay, well, it's a couple of things. And actually, I just this week published my first LinkedIn newsletter, and it was about how to get started. But there are a few things that really you need to think about. So first of all, choosing your email service provider. So that's the platform that you're going to use to create and send your emails. So typically I say, I recommend 3 that I think are good for small businesses. So it's Constant Contact, MailChimp, and MailerLite. So start a trial with all of them and, use them and create an email in them and figure out which one you feel most comfortable using, that's easiest for you to set up.
So funny because I actually recommend not totally, but mostly different ones to you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's so funny because I mean, there's merit in all of them. They wouldn't exist if there wasn't, right? But from my perspective, I mostly work with service-based businesses, so I would often recommend Flowdesk. It's really user-friendly and really, really pretty. And for me as a designer specifically, having really pretty emails feels like an extension of my business. People can see that I can design a pretty email. It just goes, if everything I do is pretty, it matters, right?
I've used Flowdesk.
I do recommend MailerLite as well. MailerLite's fantastic. And I do often recommend for more product-based businesses, I would recommend ConvertKit quite often as well.
Okay,
They're very good for those commerce, like automations and things.
Yeah,
so.
And I think they're all, they've all got similar functionality. I just find with those 3, if you're just starting out, those 3 are the ones that kind of help complete newbies that have to.
I feel like every person I know starts in MailChimp, myself included. When I first started my first email list, every client I've ever had, they start in MailChimp. And then eventually I feel like people graduate from MailChimp.
They will, yeah. And MailChimp's easy because when you don't have a lot of money, you can start on it for free. But then you can do that and more on MailerLite. So if you really don't have a budget, MailerLite actually gives you more email addresses to start free from. But obviously both of them in the free versions lock certain things down because they want you to pay.
Of course, but I actually think MailerLite's slightly easier to use than MailChimp for its free version.
I think so too.
Yeah. That's why I typically would recommend it over MailerLite, or over MailChimp, but
so those are the 3 that kind of small. I've seen, I think, in maybe less designery people that I work with, so that's what I've seen small businesses choose. And then, so once you've done that, you need a strategy, and it's not as complicated as it sounds, because you can do it all on one page. And really what you're doing is create yourself a bit of a blueprint. And you'll want to include things like your goals, how often you're going to send, what you're going to measure. So once you've decided that, you'll need a bit of a content plan as well. And you can do that separately for your emails, or you can have an overall content plan for your marketing that includes what you're going to send in your emails. And I think, if you've got, the more you can do integrated marketing, the better, because then you're not trying to generate content for lots of different places. You can have, working campaigns that include different marketing channels.
That you're repurposing your longer form pieces across the way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So your YouTube videos or your blog or your newsletter can be pieced up and put across your socials and things like that.
But that plan is important, because what I've found is with social media, people pick up one of these, they take a picture and they post it. But with email marketing, the thing that stops people sending out an email is that they start thinking about what they want to write at the moment that they sit down in front of their email marketing software to create that email. And then they get stumped, and then they think, I'll do it later, and later never comes. So having that content plan, and you can do, I'm going to say it's not difficult. People will think, oh my God, I haven't got enough time. But I say to people, at the minimum, email once a month. So you're going to have to find content for 12 newsletters. And you can, when you sit down and think about it, you won't find it difficult to find 12 newsletters worth of content that you can put together. And really, it doesn't have to be long. And I recommend 3 things, because I read somewhere there's a psychological thing about us recognizing patterns, and 3 is the pattern that we recognize the most. So limit it to 3 things. So you have to find 36 things for the year. And when you do that, it doesn't really sound very much. You don't have to write lots either.
Yeah.
So, and this comes back to linking off to your website, because if you're going to share something, and we'll come on to more of that later, but if you're going to share something like a blog post, you don't want to put the whole thing in your email. What you want to do is put a snippet in, entice people, and then get them to go to your blog to read the rest. So
yeah, absolutely. So there's so much in that, but I know you have resources to help people figure out, like, okay, what am I going to talk about? How often should I post? All those types of things. Like, do you have any advice? I have some, but I want you to go first. you any advice around those things?
In terms of how often to send?
Like, I know you said a minimum of, you're looking at 36, but I'm thinking more often, like, what the hell to say, right? So people,
so
what are you talking about?
Well, what I'd say is do an audit of all the content that you already have. So you've built this beautiful website. It's got lots of stuff on it. What exactly is that? Make a list of everything that's on there. And you can include things like blog posts, FAQs, your products, your services. You can point people to reviews, whatever you've got. And I would say mix that up. So generally what I say is that when you write an email, email marketing email, 80% of the time, you want to be writing content for your readers, and 20% of the time, you're going to promote yourself. Because, if you don't promote yourself, you're not going to sell things, and that's not having a business. Yeah. But no one likes to be sold to all the time. So think about what pain points your target audience has. What have you posted on social media that worked really well, that people engaged with and reacted well to? How can you repurpose that for your email? So you're not finding different things to say. You're just finding content that you already have. Or when you decide perhaps that you're going to write say you're going to write a big blog post. Well, you want to share that with your list, but then once and done doesn't have to be it. So you can take that blog post and turn it into different bits of content that can still be shared with your list. So you might take it and take the advice and turn it into a tip sheet, which you send to your email list. You might create little video snippets that you put on YouTube, which you then put in your newsletter and send to your email list. And it takes a lot of time for information to sort of sink in with people. And just because they've seen it once doesn't mean they'll remember it. And they might not remember it in exactly the same way. And you're taking something that's much bigger and cutting it down so that people can digest it more easily. So I would say that, don't feel like you're ever going to run out of content, and think about generally when I say make that content plan, I tell people to really just like grab a piece of paper, draw 12 boxes. That's your 12 months of the year. So what have you got coming up in all those months where you want to talk about things? So perhaps you've got some events coming up. Maybe you're going to have a sale, like you're launching a product. Where do those all fit? So once you've got those mapped out, then you've got some gaps to fill. So what are you going to fill them with? So it really just draw things out and figure out how you're going to promote the things that you want to promote, plus give your audience the things that they find valuable.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's interesting is there's no real rule book for how people do this. So of course that can feel overwhelming, which is why I tend to create my own systems in my business, because I like a plan. I love a plan. And I actually really struggled recently because I have a really loose content plan. It pretty much is one, and I break all the rules with this, really long email a month. And then occasionally I'll have emails for like a pop-up offer or sale or something that kind of get squeezed in there. But I have one major juicy email a month. And then I would like you said, there's snippets in there where I might share a couple, most of my recent blog posts, or, they're blog posts, but they're always YouTube videos in the blog post because that's who I am. And that kind of thing. But then I decided last year, but it's kind of come full circle where it's finally kind of happening now, to add not just websites, but like systems into my business. And I was like, how do I talk about both? Like, how do I talk about both? And I really made that a big deal in my head. And I was talking to one of my coaches, and she just went, what if you just like spent half the month talking about systems and half the month talking about websites? And I was like, oh, I can do that. Because in my head, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to figure out like a monthly or quarterly thing. And it's going to be like, what if I'm not talking about one enough or the other? And she was like, just split it up.
I remember this newsletter is to do, a few things for you. And one of those things is to help you get people to your website and help you find new customers, right? Mm-hmm. So it has to be done in a way that is good for you. So when I set up my business, I decided, well, I was going to email every week, and I was only ever going to talk about one thing. And that's what I do. I email every week and I talk about one thing.
And what's your one thing?
It depends. So this week.
Oh, you mean each email's one thing?
Each email's one thing. Yeah. So I never put more than, apart from in lockdown, I had an email where I said, I'm really sorry, this is going to be long, but this is to help you. And I had about 4 or 5 things in it. And people were like, this is great. Thank you so much but it was my decision, email every week. And the focus is one piece of content. So that might be register for a webinar. It might be go and read this blog post, or it might be, I've found this really great resource. Why don't you go and try it?
Right.
It's one thing that's designed to help. And then every now and again, it'll be, do you remember I've got an email marketing planner that you can buy? Go and buy it. Or I've got this course, or I've got space for some coaching clients. So if you're in the market for a marketing coach, let's talk. Right. So it's when those sales messages go through, it doesn't jar, because I've spent so much time giving them value and things.
Yeah, you're building that relationship with somebody. And I think that's the thing. So I've got 2 quick things. One is, if you're like, don't know what you want to do with your email, there's 3 things to kind of think about. One is, what do you have time and energy for to be consistent with? 2 is meeting your audience or community where they're at. And kind of, so like, I would guess your community and my community are different, and they have different expectations, which is fine. And the third one is think about the email lists you are on and that you like. Like,
Hmm.
which ones are you hanging out with? Which ones are you actually opening? That shows you a lot about what you enjoy to consume, and you're probably not that different from your audience. So that's kind of my thing. And then the other thing is I have one of my favorite newsletters that I'm on is a copywriter. She's Canadian, and she talks about lifeisms. So when she's selling to me, half the time it doesn't feel like she's selling to me
Hmm.
because she's told me some story about her summer plans or her car breaking down or whatever the hell it is. But she's told me a story first and then tied the sale to that story. She's tied the actual, like, okay, how does this matter to your business? What does this story have in your relation? And I'm working on that. Storytelling is probably not my greatest strength, but I'm getting better. So that's, yeah, those are probably my biggest tips is like selling doesn't have to feel sicky, scary or weird. Oftentimes it's just an invitation. It's
Yeah,
just, I have this thing. I think it might be really cool for you. If not, no worries. See you next time. Like,
exactly. And I think, I always say this, one of my favorite sayings is if you don't ask, you don't get. So if you don't ask the sale, you're never going to get it.
yeah,
And it really matters in the way that you ask. And this is, another sort of kind of contention. It's not a bone of contention. It's just another thing that kind of caused a little bit, well, a few words between my husband because he has a sales background. So when I started, I thought, oh, do you know what? I'll ask him because I'm not a salesperson. I always had sales teams that went out and did the selling. And he was like, oh, you should do this and you should do that. And it just didn't feel right for me. So I found a way that doesn't make me feel icky, that I can still go and say, hey, buy this
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So you have to find the way that is right for you. And I've been on a couple of sales training courses, and all the trainers have always said sales is about conversations. So have conversations with your email list. This is about building relationships. So every now and again, I will send an email that starts with, how are you? No, really, how are you? If you want to tell me, reply to this email. And I always get replies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because, and I get like sometimes they're like, oh, thanks for asking. And one time a lady wrote me a really long response. She's like, I'm just having a terrible time and XYZ. And do you know what? It just made me feel so good that you actually asked me how I was. So like this is the relationship building part, right?
Yeah.
It's you're sending a communication, you're writing it once and you're sending it to lots of people, but it doesn't have to feel that way.
It definitely doesn't feel that way. So obviously for me, sometimes I send this out to hundreds of people and I know some of them and some of them I don't. And sometimes people will reply and say or I've had people hire me that they've been like, I've been on your email list for months, or people, I think what's sometimes more weird to me sometimes is I know people in my personal life that I find out have been on my email list just to keep up with what I'm doing. Like, oh God. But I think that's the thing is it's a beautiful thing to be building that relationship. And the way that I do it, and I'm just going to give people like a breakdown of like because my once a month email, I won't lie, it's a little bit long, but I get incredible open rates. People really resign with it, and I've got it structured. I guess it's because I'm a website person. Big headings, skimmable, take what you want.
Exactly.
Not you don't have to have it read the whole freaking thing if that's So I get a lot of really good feedback for it, and it starts literally just at the top, like what's coming up and a couple of links if there's a sale coming up or there's a workshop or an event that I'm doing, they can just grab that there. Then it's like a little bit about like here's what's going on in my business, like, and it's the most vulnerable place I am in my business, and I think that's what resonates with people is I talk about the messy side. I'm like I talk about it all. Then after that, I have links, and this part's static, it doesn't change, to what's changed with my favorite tech tools. So it's literally just, I used to break it down and like have bullet points, but now it's just a link to the like update section of Squarespace, Shopify, all those places that me and my clients love. Then I talk about like what's going on in my life. And that's kind of like, I'm loving, I'm reading, I'm really frustrated. I have got about, in my newsletter template, I've got about 20 of those prompts, and I usually pick like 3. and to actually fill out. And then I wrap it up. I also put in a couple of, like I said, my blog posts in there. I wrap it up. I have a sign off, and underneath my sign off is every time there's a client testimonial. And so it's a little bit of everything. It's my life, it's my business, it's what's coming up, it's what they can buy from me, it's my testimonials, it's my blog. So it is a lot like not following the 3-person rule, or like the 3-thing rule. But it is very, very much, like I said, very well designed, very well structured. It's not overwhelming. People can say, "Oh, I'm only looking for what's going on in her life and a blog post real quick," and they can just opt out of the rest.
But I mean, like, you could get even better results by looking at who clicks on what and only sending them those things. Because if they're only interested in those things,
I probably could.
Yeah, so you can segment them, put them into buckets, and then look at what happens with your results and see whether that makes a difference. Because maybe it could be that, you know, that'll skyrocket your opens, skyrocket your clicks.
Yeah.
Probably
Unfortunately, Flowdesk isn't still great with that.
No.
So that's my thing is you can't, they've only maybe for not even quite a year ago added like a section underneath that allows people to select their preferences. Most people don't do that. I found that there's no way to like prompt everybody to sign that, to do that really. I mean, I could do like an email that has nothing on it and there'd just be like button. And then there's no, I know this for a fact because there's no way to like trigger a segmentation based on them clicking a link in regular emails. There's totally a way to do that in work, like automations, but it's a bit of a drawback. So it's a choice I've made for having really, really pretty emails and really easy to use emails to trade off that functionality. So that's definitely something worth considering, which is why people who need a lot of automation, especially e-commerce, where they need those triggers and those auto segmentations to happen, I usually am like pushing people ConvertKit way. Yeah, it is a choice. That's the thing about business is there's nothing that's ever going to do everything you want. You kind of got to make your choices.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're right. I would definitely have better if I were just sending some of those things. The other thing I do that's probably different than most entrepreneurs is I don't write my newsletter digitally. I actually write it in my journal every single month. And I find it allows me, because I feel like I'm not really writing to them yet. It feels like a journal entry. It's a lot more vulnerable. It's a lot more honest. And again, most of my emails get between a 40 and 50% open rate. So something, even though I'm not doing everything that like I'm supposed to do, it's working for me.
So. Hey, and so listen, this is about finding how to do this your way that works for you, right? I said that right at the top.
Oh yeah.
You know, and I actually wrote a post on LinkedIn a while ago, like last couple of weeks ago, and I'm not a rule breaker. I'm one of those people that gets quite at bending rules, right? But sometimes you have to bend some rules. You like, you know, otherwise you never find out whether you could achieve something. So like what I'm saying, you know, the advice that I give is what, you know, best practice. But if you find something works better for you, all power to you and carry on with it. But, you know, like keep testing things to see if you can make them better. Because at the end of the day, marketing is a little bit like science where you put in a bit of this and put in a bit of that and you're like testing to see what works. And this, the longer email every month from you is obviously working for you. So like,
yeah, and I think it's like, you're right. There's so many ways to go about it. And for me, it's just, I'm guessing it's an energetic thing. I feel really good with what I'm putting out there. People are also just, I think it's, again, that brutal honesty thing I sort of pull. So people open it because they feel less alone when business is messy, when they're reading the mess behind the scenes in my own business sometimes, and seeing that I'm still going and I'm still growing and I'm still finding my version of success. So I think that, and that's what I'm saying, I guess, is you can, whatever works for you is, I guess, what we're both saying here. It's
Yeah,
think about what you want to say to your people and find a way to say it that's going to be
absolutely. But
work for you.
start off with that goal. Like, what is it? With all,
Mm-hmm.
every marketing activity that you do, you have a goal.
Mm-hmm.
What is that goal? What what do you want your email to do? And that is going to keep you honest as well in terms of the content that you put in it. So having
Yeah.
that makes it easier for you to know what to put in it and what to leave out.
Yeah. And when you're nurturing those relationships, like you said, I like that you just say, like, reply to this email. I do that sometimes too. What I also sometimes do is I've done this twice this year. I sent out a survey instead of my January newsletter. I sent out a survey like, what do you want from this? And what I found is that most people wanted everything I was doing plus one more thing, which was they wanted like to see what was going on in my community, like other people's features essentially. And then, so that was interesting. I also found that I did another one at the end a couple months ago where it was just like, tell me what's happening in your life and business. Like it was literally just a couple long form questions, let people come to me. And then I said, and I sort of bribed people to reply, right? A couple people got a voucher that I raffled off to like incentivize people to actually take the time to reply because we're all busy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked people if I could follow up with them. And so I had some really nice calls on the back of that with my clients. I knew a gal, actually, that same Canadian copywriter, she did a thing in the pandemic for a while that every Friday she just blocked off her afternoon and had Calendly calls with people and just to get her to know her email newsletter. And she, when you really know your people, it goes through the rest of your work. You're able to then craft better offers and better messaging and better all these things, right?
Yeah.
So,
Good.
and I'd say, as you know, but I'd say like your email is your best place. Your website, you're going to be getting more cold traffic than you're there networking. You're probably only getting like to know a couple people that are really a good fit. Same with pretty much any other social media. You're getting like kind of a lukewarm audience. Your email, those people have chosen to give you a sacred place, which is their inbox.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And
So don't abuse that trust.
yeah,
And
exactly.
I mean, asking them what they want is a really good thing. And like every year I do a survey, and it's a wider survey about what small businesses want to know about marketing, like for the next year. But there is a section on there for anyone who is on my email list to tell me what they think about my newsletter and what they like and what they feel is missing, because I want to give them the things that they are interested in.
Yeah.
Every quarter I've got one in a couple of weeks' time, but I do a mini mastermind, and the most engaged people on my email list and in my Facebook group get an invitation. So every quarter I look at the most engaged people on my email list, and some people open 100% of my emails.
Yes, I've got a couple of those too.
So I'm obviously doing something right, and to spend energies on those people, again, that's another good relationship builder. So
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I love that idea that you kind of reward the people who are taking the time to engage with you with more of your expertise. They're getting more of you, which they're clearly already super fans.
Yeah.
Which is another thing I wanted to say earlier. I think my biggest thing that people come up with when they say that they're afraid. So like we talked about having a content plan and repurposing and putting things in multiple places. I think a lot of times people get afraid of doing that because they're afraid of overwhelming their audience. But there's no way that one person is seeing every single place you're posting an idea or a thought or a content.
No.
And if they are, they're your super fan and they don't care.
It's true. And I think it's also how you package it up. You're going to package up your content slightly differently for your email than you are on social media. And it's also, one of the things that you could do is ask your list how they like to consume your content and start delivering it in that way. But know that, if all your use on social media, if you're only using organic social media, your posts are reaching about 1 to 2% of your followers, right? But email marketing has a 90% deliverability rate. So if you get a good quality list that, you know, enjoys reading what you send, if you 100 followers on Facebook versus 100 people on your email list, like the numbers are there, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have to be worried about that, because it's you know, people, if they really, really are your super fans, they don't mind seeing that information again. And you can stagger things, so you don't have to have, you know, the same thing on your social network, social media, and your email, and all of it at the same time. You can stagger it so that it gets seen over a period of time. And like I say, you know, we're busy. We're bombarded with a gajillion messages every day, and we don't see everything. We need reminding.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's that like you have to, it does take a while. We already mentioned this earlier, you did, that it takes a while for people to process something, right? So they need to see it a couple times. But the other thing is, I actually usually tell people, again, for process sake, but more because I'm a systems person, I'm not a marketing person, just to clarify for people. But for systems sake, I tell people to post things on their newsletter first. So I have somebody that was like, I just want to post all my newsletters in my blog. Is that fine? And I said, yes, if you post it to your newsletter first. They should be treated like your VIPs. Like, you want to give them the content first. So I do the same. I take a lot of my newsletter content and it does end up on my social media, but my newsletter people get it first.
Me too.
And they get it a little more vulnerable. I might tidy it up a little for social media.
Yeah, me too. And I think, you know, doing that, treating your email list as VIPs is really good, and giving them it's giving them a reason to be on your email list. So I know that, you know, for my list, they get that weekly email, but that Facebook group is tied into that email. So you can't join that group if you're not on the list. And in that group, I share content that doesn't get shared anywhere else. So you're getting more value. And every month I create a Facebook guide of different topics that will help them. Like this month, we're talking about customer service and how you can do that as a solo business owner and, you know, give really good customer service. So they get extra things that no one else gets. They get 4 webinars a year that are only for them. I don't invite anyone else. So it's how can you make your subscribers feel like they're in a place where they're being treated like VIPs, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Everything that I've
or a lot of time,
all time, everything that I've told you about is, you know, it costs me my time, but I'm not spending money to do those things.
But like you're obviously showing up in your group and you're creating a monthly resource and then a quarterly resource. But like, if you're doing that with, as I know you are, like with information you already are pretty good at, you're not spending a lot of time creating it. That's going to be something, you're just providing value. You're not providing tons and tons and tons of your time, and you're not spending any money, which is pretty cool.
So I just think, you know, treat them as VIPs. That email address is a precious piece of information, and they've decided to give it to you. So, like, be honourable with it. Be transparent about what you're going to send them and how often. You know, deliver on that promise. I know that there are a couple of email marketers who say, "Oh, you should send your list every day. Every day, you should send an email every day." Well, as a solo business owner, can you really manage that? Because it has to work for you.
You would have to batch it. And so like maybe, but it's like, even big brands don't do that. Most, like, I'm on email lists for some big brands, because, you know, I've done the like 10% off in store or whatever, and I like the product, so I've stayed on, and I'm not getting their emails every single day.
No.
If I was, I would have freaking unsubscribed.
And honestly, small businesses do it so much better than big brands. I'm on lists for big brands. One high street chemist, shall we call them, that sell lots of other things. And I have their loyalty card. You can probably tell which one that is.
Yep.
But sometimes I will get 3 emails in a day from them. And I said, you know, when I told them, I said, you know, this is really bad email practice. Like, you shouldn't be sending me this many emails a day. You should be segmenting. They told me I should unsubscribe if I didn't want them.
That's just, All right. There's so much I want to say, but there's still things I really want to get to in our last few minutes. So we've talked about nurturing and building that relationship, which is so important. But how do you get people on your newsletter to begin with? So how do you get them to actually join your newsletter?
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is create what I call your value statement. So I've already mentioned it's 2 parts to it. What value are people going to get when they sign up? So this is the what's in it for me. That's in the back of our heads when we're asked for our email addresses. And number 2 is how often are they going to hear from you, right? And with those 2 things, it's really good to be completely transparent, because people want to know, what are you going to do with this personal piece of information that I'm giving you? And like, what value am I going to get out of it? So make them feel comfortable about handing over their email address. And then, like, in terms of your website, you want to ask in all the places that your target audience hangs out. So you just grab a piece of paper and make a list, ask in all those places. But particularly for your website, my tip, you need to ask people to join your email list on every single page, which sounds a bit much. But there are a couple of reasons for this, right? So firstly, and you'll know, you help people with their websites. You never know which page a visitor is going to enter your website on, right? You just don't know that. And they didn't come to your website to join your email list, right? And the next thing is, you don't know when they're going to be ready to join your email list. Okay, so making it easy for them is what you want to do. So on my website, I've got a button that lives on the menu, the top menu, that follows people around as they go to different pages. So that when they're ready, they can just click on that button and they go, yeah, actually, I do want to join her email list. But then I've got sign-ups in various other places. So I will ask for a sign-up in blog posts. Okay. And then I also have a pop-up on my website, which I find so annoying on other people's.
But they're so effective. Like the conversion rate of a pop-up, we all hate them, but they're there because they effing work.
Right. But this pop-up it appears as the visitor is about to leave my website. And it's that I call it the Columbo moment. So anyone who's old enough to remember Columbo, when Columbo used to interview the murder suspect, he goes to leave, and the murder suspect thinks, that's it. And then he turns around and says, oh, and another thing. So that pop-up comes up as the person's done what they want to do, they've found what they want to find on my website, and they're about to go, and it goes, oh, and another thing. Do you want this nice tip sheet, or do you want this? And it's never a sale. It's at the minute, I think it's my email marketing cheat sheet. But those convert really well for me, and then people join my email list.
Yeah.
So, be transparent about what you're going to do with people's information. Tell them what you're going to send and how often, and then honor that. Meet
Absolutely.
those expectations.
Yeah. So on my site, I have it really simple, which I really probably should crank up how many places and times I ask for but I have it in the footer, and I've got it on a banner because I have a quiz, and I have that as a banner at the very top of my site. So that's on every single page, no matter what. And then I do have it in a few other places on my site, but I really could have it in more. I probably should have it in my top navigation, like as a place to join. Well, I do. I have my quiz also in the top navigation because again, that's in a few places. But I think you're right. It's just one of those things you need to ask. And those pop-ups are really, really effective. But you're adding value in whatever you're sharing and why they should join your list, or a freebie or an opt-in or whatever you want to call it as well. And then I don't actually personally, and I could and probably should, but there's only so much room on a website where I say, okay, I'm going to email you this often, et cetera, at the top of it. But my nurture sequence, when people join, does have that information.
Yeah.
So the first email says, here's who I am. The second email says, here's exactly what to expect.
Yeah.
This is the content you're going to get. This is the frequency it's going to get. And anytime I'm offering something outside of that, so maybe I have a sale and I'm sending a lot of emails in a period, I always have it. Do you want to opt out of this particular thing that I'm talking about? Which saves you a lot of unsubscribes. So if, like a couple weeks ago, I was doing a pop-up offer for the one-day website refresh. And if somebody didn't want a one-day website refresh, they could just say, no, just send me your newsletters.
But I mean, interesting enough, you don't always have space to do that, to tell people how often you email them and stuff. So what I've done is I've got the button on my website, and what I've done is create a landing page that then tells them everything. So it's like, well, here's what you get for signing up. You're going to get an email every week, but there's a private Facebook group, and there's this, and you can read some reviews of people that have already on my email list. You can read a previous newsletter, and here are all the other benefits that you get for joining. So
that's brilliant.
like, so just think of ways that you want to stop the objection before it happens. Because quite a lot of the times, and it happens a lot in shops, when you go into big shops and they'll say, oh, can we add you to our email list? And I always say no. And those people, I might have said yes, but those people have not been trained in how to ask.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I think that's very, very valid. And I think I could, like, you're right, I could totally create that type of landing page. I could find a way to tell people what they're getting. Yeah. Like there's so much there.
I mean, I know you like videos, so they could just, the landing page could be
videos.
telling people why they should sign up. I mean,
Actually,
like I said, there's no hard and fast rule, right?
I know. I'm a big fan actually of the app Video Ask, and I've taken it off my site for now because I felt like I had a pop-up and I had the banner and I had the cookie consent, and it was just a lot of things to click.
Yeah.
But the video ask would be a really great way to be able to have that little video, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, please sign up for my newsletter. Like, that's such an easy, and it's powered by Typeform, and they've got a really good free plan, and it's cool. So, all right, we've talked a lot about all of these. And we've talked a little bit about like how to drive people back to your website. So one of those ways is a blog, right? So if you're creating content, putting a snippet of that into your newsletter, driving them back. Or maybe you talked about other forms of things on your website, like your frequently asked questions or those kinds of things, where you could talk a little bit about that in a storytelling way and drive people back to learn more to your site. And then obviously you'll probably be doing that again with the proper sales emails as well. Like, hey, I have this offer. Hop over to the website to buy it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or in my case, quite often it's hop over to the website to book a free call with me.
Yeah, I mean, so think about you, and when you receive an email that's, for your email, you're telling people information, but you're kind of limiting the choices, so, of what you want them to do. And that gets easier, like for me, because I only ever talk about one thing, and I'm only asking them to do one thing, right? But what is it that you want people to do? So in this instance, you want them to come back to your website. So how are you going to do that? So it could be, you could start off an email with, you know what, we've been getting a lot of questions about how we process our orders and how long you wait and da 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 da. We've got FAQs on our website that cover this. Why don't you go and check it out? Right? Or if you're a product business, every month you might have a product spotlight. So you're talking about one product and you want people to go and buy that. By talking about that one thing, you're giving them less choice. When I used to work at Constant Contact, that was the email marketing company. When I worked there, we actually worked with a florist, and we did a test for emails for a sale that she was having. And the first email had a choice of 3 bouquets, and the second email had just 1 bouquet. And the email that made the most sales was the email that just had 1 bouquet. But they didn't buy that 1 bouquet. They bought other things, not just that one. Yeah. So when you're limiting people's choices, you're giving them less decision making to do. Yeah. And remember that,
decision fatigue.
Yeah. So people get a lot of emails. So you want to make sure that, like, if you're doing product, spotlight one product. Don't talk about everything. And then when you talk about that product, link directly to that sales page. You don't want them to go searching for that. Right? So stop the dithering, take the decision-making process away from them. And you're helping them by taking them straight to that sales page. And then if you're using an image of that product, because images are content too, remember to link that image to the product page. Yeah. So I know for my emails, when I check, every time I check to see where people have clicked in my emails, 100% of the time they always click on the image that I've included, because we're trained to click on images. So make those work hard for you. So that's one way of getting people back to your website. But outside of sales, what in your head, what is a conversion? It might be a blog post, it might be booking an appointment, it might be going and looking at a particular web page. Blog post the easiest, because that's content that it's serving a purpose for you, it's serving a purpose for your readers, right? So that blog post is helping to get people back to your website, but it's helping your readers with something that's educational, that is there to support them. So think about what that conversion is for you. And it's when you're a product-based business, it's easy, because you're spotlighting products you're wanting to sell. A service business might find it easier to get someone to their website with a piece of educational content. And then people generally tend to go, oh, there's a pop-up, or, oh, in the middle of this blog post, it says, if you're interested in this, why don't you go and check out this other thing? So you're encouraging them to go and visit other parts of your website.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important, is that like defining what is a conversion. And it might not be the same for every email you send, but it is so important to get that idea. For example, when I was doing that 1-day website refresh sequence of the emails I was sending out, I was obviously tracking the analytics and clicks quite closely. And I found that there were storytelling emails, there was helpful, like, here's what a website checklist, like so many things that I sent out in that were really, really helpful and varied. The one that converted the highest by a lot was the case studies from the beta. Pictures of the before and afters and the testimonials did. So like, if you're thinking like, what is the one thing I'm going to do? Social proof.
Absolutely. And if you've got those, like, don't hide them away, share them. And like that this year, because mine are in so many different places, they're on Google, they're on LinkedIn, they're on my, they're all over the place. And this year I was just like, it's too difficult. So I pulled everything together in a Word document. So if I think, oh, I'm doing a webinar, I want to have a piece of feedback from someone that attended a webinar to encourage other people to attend, that's that one. Oh, I want to talk about my mentoring. Here's so they're all there, and you've got these things that tell you that you're good at what you do. So don't hide them.
Yeah. I organize all of mine in Asana under category. So website design, I've got them all in there. But yes, there's many ways to do it. There's so many things. But I feel like we could talk about this so much more, because email marketing has evolved so much in the last few years. Marketing in general has. I think the people value authenticity and transparency in a way that they didn't necessarily in pre-pandemic. But we are out of time. So like, there's so many things I want to say, and I would love to hear your opinions on, but mostly I think I want to hear now, because we're out of time, where people can find you, and then what cool things you have for them.
So people can find me website, marketingbyminal.com. And I shared with you earlier, I've just created a new email marketing resources page on my website that has a bunch of stuff on there, from courses that I've created right through to free resources. So that's a good place to start if you are just dipping your toe into email marketing.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good information on there. I was on it earlier, so definitely check it out. And yeah, your Facebook page as well is just a wealth of information about business in general. So I know she's got her private Facebook group, and do go and join her newsletter, because there's value in there and in that group as well. But even her Facebook page, she interviews loads of other entrepreneurs, and there's so much good value there. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you so much for joining and bringing your expertise.
Oh, thank you for asking me. It's been really good fun.
Yeah, it has been. I love how, like, obviously you're the expert, but I just love how differently we see and do things, and how valid it all is.
Yep.
Like, I love that.
If we were all the same, the world would be a boring place.
A very boring place. Well, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.